David in Mexico City says you have a good reason to believe in God, but I'm confused. Boils down to rhetoric. How you doing, David? You're on with Justin and Matt.
Hey, what's up, Matt and Justin? Hi. I just want to start by saying that I'm a serious caller. I'm a fan of the show. I'm not interested in esoteric definitions to prove God just for the sake of it, although I think I have one of those. I'm an academic devoted to science, reason, and to ethics, which I think you are too. My reason is this. Believing in God, it helps me to persuade more people, atheists as well as theists, to follow proper scientific ethics instead of making the debates about God existing or not. In other words, it allows me to translate between good and bad interpreters of the laws of nature.
Except that when you say this, David, when you say this, you're not giving me a reason to believe in a God. You're talking about how useful it is to use God with people who believe. That's not an argument for belief. It's an argument for the utility of belief.
A little bit. My belief is a bit defined pragmatically. I'm a pragmatist. I understand truth in a pragmatic way.
Are you convinced that God, are you actually convinced that a God exists?
Yeah, but I think that's a trivial thing to say because I define one. Well, part of the definition is God is nature, and nature exists, therefore God exists, which I know you call that esoteric, but that's just the first part. I have more of a Yuval Harari perspective on the matter, if you allow me to define God. I have three parts. Can I?
Nobody's stopping you.
Go for it.
Okay. So semantically, God denotes nature, kind of the Spinoza or Whitehead way. It's not a supernatural being. It's just a process we call nature, as magnificent and awesome and as mysterious as it is. Syntactically, God connotes our ignorance about nature. This gives rise to mythification of God as idealized, anthropomorphized, and we have ignorance about it. Yeah.
This is fundamentally identical to someone saying, hey, nature exists. I believe God is nature. Therefore, I believe God. We're no longer talking about God in any useful sense. You calling nature God doesn't add anything to it, right? It's still just nature.
Yeah.
So if I already have a word for something, why would I use a different word that doesn't add anything, that causes problems and breakdowns in communication because I'm now using a word in a way that isn't typical for everybody else who's using a word? Why would I do that?
Yeah, I think you're just muddying the waters, David.
Yeah, maybe, but if I take God to be, the stories we tell each other, well, the gods, gods in the sky, the gods.
That's all based on an if you take God. If I take God to be this can of soda, then I definitely believe God exists. And I know this is a can of soda, but if I call it God, what have I done? Am I being
my point is, that's why I said, I agree. That's why I say it boils down to rhetoric, not logic.
I'm not interested in rhetoric. I'm not interested in rhetoric.
Well, maybe the way we understand it, I heard you say that you want the show to, one of the objectives is to have people call, and if they're wrong, be educational, right?
No, the goal of the show is for people to call in and tell us what they believe and why, and for us to assess the why, and in particular, why do they think anybody should believe this? You're not even arguing for belief in a God. You're arguing for calling nature God and using this in a pragmatic, utilitarian sense to convince people of other things, and I find that to be dishonest.
Well, no, because there's many people who believe in different gods, right? But we all have to share the planet, and a lot of them have intuitions about how we should, relate to each other. Some of them, I agree with you that we should base those on well-being, and if I base that on well-being, I'm being a realist because, as you say, we exist. We are subjects that are interested in their well-being. So it's in my interest to convince those people of that ethics. And I mean,
but if you're convincing them,
convinced of the ethics, not of the logic.
David, I have no problem with people convincing people about ethics or convincing people to support science. What I have a problem with is propping up science on a dishonest representation and usage of the word God. What I have a problem with is people trying to prop up ethics and morals on a dishonest usage of the word God. You might find it useful, but what you're really saying is, here's a bunch of people who believe in a God. I don't think any of that crap's real, but if I can make use of that to get them to do something else, well, then I'll just go with it. And I won't, because that's dishonest.
Yeah, I kind of, I'm not completely convinced of this. The idea comes from a relative I have who hears voices. They say it's schizophrenia. And she seems like unwilling or incapable of reason about the existence of God. If we start, talking about that, we don't get anywhere.
Do you think that she represents a normative or typical portion of the population?
I don't know. I wonder, because a lot of people that call.
Okay, well, then
I don't want to say they're mentally. Listen, I don't want to say
research and find out.
What's that?
Go do some research and find out, because what you're basically arguing for is that you cite it as a weird example where it may be the only way to reach that person is to manipulate their God belief, but that's not going to be true for the majority of people.
No,
it doesn't mean
I have more relatives. I have a lot of Mexican relatives.
The ends don't justify the means. You don't get to pick out an exception to the rule and then use that to try to justify this dishonest approach to arguing. Why can't we just argue honestly? Why would science need anything to prop it up? Why wouldn't science be justified on its own merits?
No, I think there's a misunderstanding. I'm coming from the idea that if you understand God supernaturally, you're working on a confusion. And if I try to correct that confusion from you and you're not willing or capable of doing it, I'd rather, and if I still have to, deal with you and live with you in this planet and be close to you, I'd rather be realist about, living together and be good to each other. And they have intuitions about it. And I'd rather, tap on those intuitions about love, about faith, maybe sometimes, if you interpret it correctly as trust. And work from there.
No, I don't think
it's dishonest. I think
it is dishonest. Do you believe in God in the same way that they do?
This is the third part of my definition, which if gods are the stories we tell each other.
David, do you believe in God in the way that they do?
Some of them there is a generalized, but most of them no. But some of them, yeah. I have a lot of friends that share my perspective.
Oh my God! For the most of them that are no, are they aware that you don't believe in God in the way that they do?
I make it a point to say that if we're going to talk about God, can we talk about, and if you say it's creation, can we limit ourselves to talking about what we can, actually verify? And when they agree, I know we can talk about more. It's not like I'm pulling a veil over their eyes. I'm being honest. I'm saying, this is my belief. Can we, go from there? And normally the answer is yes. And if we focus on, if they go on their intuition, and if I go on my logic, scientific, I can serve as a corrector, not as generous interpreter, let's say.
I don't have anything to add. Do you have anything to add, Justin?
No, no, not at all.
Okay. Thanks, David.
Okay.
Thanks for the call.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you.
Yeah, I
think that would have been one of the ones that I would have preferred by email, because I could really read the whole thing, digest it, and try to understand it. But
being as shareable as possible. What we're talking about is, hey, he's having conversations with people who believe in a God, And so he tries to convince them, hey, can we just talk about this God stuff in terms of, what we can prove or whatever else? If the people that he's talking to believe in an actual God and he doesn't, and he's trying to convince them about ethics, which is going to be circumvented by what their holy book and what their religion says about ethics, I don't see how this kind of dishonest representation, don't get me wrong, using people's religious beliefs against them can be very useful on occasion, but that doesn't mean it's the right thing to do. I mean, it's a great, he's trying his best to, not be a dick to people and maybe, open their eyes to science or ethics, but I can't say that's the right way to do it.